So I will be talking, as I said, about the fundamentals of the sensory system. Now, let's go through the organization, how the sensory system is organized. So when we talk about sensory system or sensations, they are divided into two major groups, okay? One is classified as a special sensation. The special sensation includes the hearing and balance. These are the two main, two of the special sensation. And then that includes vision, and that includes smell and taste. So hearing, balance, vision, smell, and taste, they are a group of sensation. We call them special sensation, right? And then the other group is somatosensory system or somatic sensation. So in this sensory system, we'll cover all of them. But in this class, I will be talking about the somatosensory system, okay? Now, somatosensory system, again, depending on the location of the receptors, they are again divided into two parts. One is we call exteroceptive division, where the receptor which convert the different type of energies or stimulation into nerve impulse, they are present in the skin. We call exteroceptors or exteroceptive division. And they include the mechanoreceptors like touch, pressure, those are on the skin. Thermoreceptors, which detect the signal of warm and cool sensation. And nociceptors are the pain receptors. They catch the pain sensation, okay? They convert the painful stimulus. They carry the signal of the painful stimulus and take them to the brain, okay? Now, so the interoceptive division is where the receptors are located in the internal organ of the body. Like, for an example, if we have a stretching in the stomach, that signal, that receptor is located within the internal organ, like in the stomach, right? So those are called the visceral, right? The receptors are located in the viscera, like you will see in the aorta or in the carotid artery. We have chemoreceptors, which can detect the chemical composition in the blood, and they can generate appropriate signal. Those are called the visceral sensation and the visceral receptors. And proprioceptors are the receptors that detect mainly the mechanical, the stimulus. They respond to mechanical stimulus. Those receptors are mainly present in the muscle, joints, and tendons. Let me see if I can have it better. Okay, let me see if this could be a little easier to see. Okay, so that's how the organization of sensory system is done. You see, we have two types of sensation again. Just to summarize, one is special sensation, the other one is the somatic sensation. Okay, the somatic sensation again is divided into two groups: the exteroceptors and interoceptors, exteroceptive division and interoceptive division. Now, let me go over the basic anatomy, how the structural arrangement of the sensory pathways. If you look at this one, you see this is a nerve here, right? This is a nerve, and this is those who are not familiar with the neurons have two major components. They have a cell body like this one. This is the cell body of this neuron, and these are the processes. Okay, now the processes, these we call mainly dendrites, and these processes we classify them as axons. Anyway, so sensory system, see this one of the process, cell body is here. This is one of the processes like dendrites, and then in the skin at the end it divides into three branches. It divides generally sometime into 3-4 branches. So those individual nerve endings, they serve as receptors. Receptors means, if we define receptors, we call receptors are transducers that convert various forms of energy in the environment into an action potential in the nerve. Okay, so whether this is a mechanical stimulus, whether this is a thermal stimulus, whether this is a painful stimulus, or this is a electromagnetic stimulus, no matter what type of stimulus you apply, the function of the receptor will be to convert that particular stimulus or that particular energy into an action potential. So this, the receptive part is this one. Okay, so they are responsible for the conversion of any form of energy into an action potential in the nerve. Now, when the signal is carried in the nerve, it is carried as action potential. That is a very important concept, because if you take a nerve and you look at the way the signal traveling, all signals are traveling as a nerve impulse. Is it just action potential traveling? It's electrical signal traveling through the nerves. Now, how do the brain differentiate whether this, or if everything is same, the nerve signal, how do we know which one will give me a pressure sensation, which one will give me a touch sensation, which one will give me a thermal sensation? It depends on where the signal will end in your brain. So you see, when they all travel as an action potential, just an electrical stimulus. But depending on which area, which particular area of the brain that signal ends, that will give you that particular sensation. For an example, you see our eyes are in the front, right? They have the receptors for vision. So this is in layman's term, everybody knows that, right? So they will convert the electromagnetic energy in the environment into an action potential in the nerve. So whatever you see, its color, its description, everything, all those electromagnetic signal or stimulus is converted into action potential in the optic nerve. Now, how do we see that optic nerve from the eye, from the retina of our eye, end up in the brain? Now, the area for vision, the area of brain that is capable of interpreting that signal is in the back of our head. We call the occipital lobe. Okay, as a part of this course, if the campus doesn't go into total lockdown again, my plan is to take you to our lab one day and give you a hands-on demo actually on the brain and spinal cord. I think that will be interesting if you don't have that experience yet. So now the optic nerve, if the optic nerve end up except for the occipital lobe in the brain in any other part of the brain, we will not be able to see, because the signal that is carried by optic nerve or olfactory nerve is carrying the smell sensation, right? Like for an example, glossopharyngeal nerve is carrying the taste sensation from our tongue. Now, all of them, the point that I want to make is that once the energy in the stimulus is converted by the receptors into an action potential, then everything is same. All signals are carried to the brain as an action potential, just electrical signal. They don't know how to interpret the signal. Now, as I said, how those will be interpreted as a taste or a smell or a touch or a pain or a thermal stimulus or a visual stimulus, that all will depend on where this nerve is ending. Okay, so that is something important. So, okay, so that's how the sensation begins here, right? Now that sensation is the relay station, because this, if you consider this neuron, and this is the center of it, we call it dorsal root ganglia here. If you look at the spinal cord here, this is the cross section through a spinal cord, and this is a spinal nerve, and this is a dorsal root ganglia. Okay, so now things will travel through the dorsal root ganglia. Okay, that is the cell body of the first order neuron. Okay, and then this neuron which begin here, it will end all the way in the spinal cord. Look at this one, this will come here all the way here in the spinal cord. Okay, now in the spinal cord, the first neuron will end and it will synapse. Again, synapse is a junction where one neuron ends and another neuron begins. Just simply said. Okay, now, synaptic transmission is again is the first thing. We will not get into that one, but unless some of you are really interested, I can explain you to that. So here, that the one neuron ends, the first order neuron ends, and the second neuron begins. So they are not anatomically, as we are talking about the anatomy, they are not structurally continuous. There is a space between two neurons. We call it synaptic cleft. Synapse is the junction between the two neurons, and where one neuron ends and one neuron begins, and in the synapse, the gap, the very small gap between the two neurons, where one ending, one beginning, that is called synaptic cleft. So now, if there is a gap, there is a functional, anatomic, structural discontinuity between one neuron and the other, there is a gap. So that gap, the signal there is a special way for the signal to transmit from one neuron to the other through this gap. Okay, that process is called synaptic transmission or synaptic transmission, whichever way you call it. And that is a chemical, transmission. There are some electrical as well, but mostly there are chemical transmission from one signal from one neuron to the other. Okay. Now, for some of the things, if you have observed knee jerk, actually, if the physician tap on your patellar tendon, the knee jerk forward. So knee jerk forward by the contraction of quadriceps muscle, right? Quadriceps femoris muscle. Now, normally quadriceps femoris is a skeletal muscle, right? It's a combination of four muscles, actually. That's why we call quad. So quadriceps femoris is a skeletal muscle and they are voluntary muscle. Normally, contraction of voluntary muscle is, we can control it, right? If I want, I can pull my leg forward. If I don't, I can keep it in the same place because it's under my voluntary control. These are not like smooth muscle or cardiac muscle. Skeletal muscle is under our voluntary control. But at times, when the neurologist want to see you knee jerk, they tap on the patellar tendon, and tapping of the patellar tendon, sometimes it will cause the jerking of the knee forwards. We call knee jerk. That is a deep reflex. Okay, so that contraction of quad is not because of the voluntary, it's involuntary response. We call it involuntary motor response because of a sensory stimulus. What is the sensory stimulus here? We tap the patellar tendon, right? In response to tapping of the patellar tendon, the knee jerk forward. What type of contraction of the quadriceps muscle here? This is involuntary response. Why this is responding involuntary? Because this is a reflex process. This is not a like irregular voluntary movement. Normally, that muscle is under my voluntary control. If I want, I can contract. If I don't, I will not contract. But at times, the muscle can produce contraction. Even voluntary muscle can produce involuntary contraction, and that is a process called reflex, actually. So the signal is carried from here, it goes to the spinal cord, and it goes back to the motor, the muscle, the skeletal muscle, to produce contraction. Anyway, that is not the part of our main discussion today. So if we move forward, the second neuron, they will go all the way to the thalamus. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with thalamus. One day I will talk about those, the main parts, actually, when we go to the lab. All this sensory signal, with an exception of smell, all sensory signal will be relayed through the thalamus. So thalamus is a major relay station for almost all the signals, okay? So at the thalamus, the second neuron will also end, and third neuron will begin. Again, there will be a synapse here where this neuron ends and this neuron begins. And then that will go all the way to the primary sensory area. As I said, for us to see something, that signal, the visual signal, should end up in the occipital lobe, right? Now, for us to feel any sensation, that has to go a specific area of the brain. We call it primary sensory area in the brain. I will show that area where that one is located, but that one is the temporal lobe, not in the frontal lobe, it's in the temporal lobe. I will show you that part. Anyway, so that is the anatomy of the whole thing, right? So any sensation, they will begin at the receptors, right? So what the receptor will respond to, the receptors will respond to any stimulus, okay? But for the receptor to respond, that stimulus need to be an appropriate level, okay? It's that I will cover in the receptor class. So when you apply a stimulus, that is received by the receptors. What are the receptors again? These are just nerve endings, right? You see the nerve endings here? Nerve endings. So these receptors will convert that energy into an action potential, and that action potential will travel through this nerve to here in the spinal cord first, and then they will be carried as a bundle of nerve fibers. We call them nerve tracts, and they will go all the way up in the base of the brain in an area called thalamus, where that is a major relay station. It will be relayed over there, and the third order neuron, they will start from there, and it will end in the somatosensory area. Because we are talking about somatic sensation, they will all end in we call it primary sensory area in the brain, okay? And now, when it comes to the brain, then the brain does that part of the area, the sensory area, will do the interpretation. Because now, as I said, as the signal is traveling through these, all these area, this is nothing but an electrical signal. It's just ionic channel movement, right? So it's moving as an electrical signal. Now, whether that is a pain, or that is a heat, or that is a cold, or whatever it is, that interpretation is done by the sensory area. Okay, that will bring the sensation into a conscious level. It will reach our consciousness. You see, there are a lot of sensory stimulus that doesn't reach our level of consciousness. Just for an example, if when you are driving in the interstate, right? If you are driving in the interstate, you see a lot of cars moving around you, right? Some of them are going fast, some of them are going slow, some of them are following you, but you don't pay any attention to those cars. Those cars are making noise, right? There is sound coming from the street because of noise or from the other vehicles. Some vehicle is very noisy. See, but you ignore them. If they don't, those are all, those stimulus are all received by the hair cells, the hearing receptors of our ear, right? They are all received by the receptors in the ear, but they never come to a conscious action. Because we have the ability to ignore them, they never reaches the conscious level. I don't even ignore it. But if a police car come behind you and then turn on their lights, that is something you cannot ignore. That definitely come to your conscious, at the level of your consciousness. There will be two things. One, you will hear their siren of their car, that they are trying to communicate with you, or you will see the visual signal as well, that the blue lights actually coming from the police vehicles. Those is something that definitely will reach your conscious level. So again, we receive a lot of millions of signals every single moment, but we discard a lot of them as noise or as a background noise. But only some of them will reach the level of consciousness. Okay, so that is what it will do. So that is what is done by primary somatosensory area, right? Now, one concept, basic concept that I want you to understand is the sensory unit. What is the sensory unit? You look at the cell bodies here, these are the processes, right? Now, at the end of this process, this nerve is divided into three branches. All these nerve endings can serve as the receptors, right? So the branches of one nerve actually that giving all these branches, they form a sensory unit. Okay, now if you have two nerves coming here, two receptors coming here, maybe another sensory unit here. So the sensory units can combine together to produce a much stronger stimulus, okay, much stronger signal. Okay, depending on the intensity of the stimulus, it will determine how many sensory units are stimulated because of the intensity of the stimulus. If the stimulus intensity is very low, maybe one of the sensory unit will respond. So you can imagine the signal in the attached nerve will be weaker. But if the stimulus is strong, more sensory unit will be involved. So the signal will be stronger. Okay. So that is the basic anatomy of the arrangement of the somatosensory pathway. Now, if we look at the functional level, the same thing here, right? Now, let's talk about what is causing what is initiating an event. And sensory event is initiated by a sensory signal, right? You apply a stimulus that is received by these nerve endings, right? What is this one? This is the dorsal root ganglia. This is the dendrite. These are axons. So these are the nerve endings, right? And we can call it a sensory unit as well. So now this sensory stimulus is received by these nerve endings or the receptors, and they produce a local action potential. I will talk about that one a little bit. And then that signal, that sensory stimulus, produce a local potential. If it reaches to its threshold of excitation, then this will produce an action potential in this nerve. Now, this action potential will be carried here in the spinal cord as a sensory signal, okay? Now, there will be some integration of the sensory signal take place in the spinal cord, And then that signal, either it will produce a response, which is a reflex response, but most of them will be carried as a bundle of nerve fibers upwards in the spinal cord and will reach the thalamus. And from the thalamus, they will eventually, let me see. Oh, okay, let me see. This is okay. Let me see if I can move this. Okay. Okay. So now, so the signal that you applied here, that is the beginning of the sensation. So there are two different concepts that you have to understand here. One we call sensation, and the other one we call perception. Sensation is a process that begins at the start of the event. Actually, when you apply a sensory stimulus, this process starts see, these receptors detect that signal and the process of sensation begins. So sensation begins here, right? And it goes all the way to the end. Okay, so that signal is carried into spinal cord to the thalamus to the primary sensory area, right? Now, in the sensory area, you see the process of perception didn't begin here, right? Process of perception began only at the somatosensory cortex, right? So what somatosensory cortex does is that it put the sensation into context, okay? So if you put it into context, like if you look at the definition, it's a process of placing a given sensation into a context of all other sensation, because you are receiving so many sensations there. So, and then also depending on your mindset, what is in your mind, what you are trying to see, so depending on that, it will give you a context and then present you a sensation that you are looking for, or you are familiar with, or you have this previous experience with this one. So it will put that sensation into a context, and that we call perception. Let me give you a quick example of this one. Oh, what happened here again? Okay, now look at this one here. The same you are receiving, if you look at this picture, and this picture, you see, my eyes is receiving signal from this picture, right? The color and the structure and everything is going as an electromagnetic signal to my eyes, and my retina is detecting it. Retina doesn't know what it is. Retina knows that a color and the structure of something is converted, that was electromagnetic energy. All retina will do, it will convert the signal coming from this picture into an action potential in my optic nerve. That's the function of optic nerve. That optic nerve doesn't know what to see, how to see. Okay, it will, all optic nerve will do, the receptors here are rods and cones. What they will do, rods and cones in the retina, they will convert the signal that is coming from this piece of paper into an action potential in the optic nerve. Now, as the signal is traveling through the optic nerve, through all the relay stations, it will go through several relay stations, lateral geniculate ganglia, optic chiasm, and then eventually this signal will end up in the visual area, which is located in the back of our brain in the occipital lobe. Okay. Now, when this signal end up in the occipital lobe, now, depending on your mindset, say like if you are drawing a rabbit, you know you are drawing a rabbit, so that is in your mind. Your mind is ready to see a rabbit drawn by you or somebody else. So depending on your mindset, you will see the animal is looking this way. So this is the head, these are the ears, and this is the tail. You can see a rabbit facing this way. Now, the same signal, if I show the same picture of this one to somebody else, depending on that individual's mindset or the way the occipital lobe is explaining, putting this in context, main focus was coming on this direction. So this, oh, this is a duck because these are the beaks of the duck, and then this is the eye and it's looking this way. Okay, now whether you will see the same thing, sensory signal is the same. The signal is traveling as a nerve impulse. everything is same, but depending on the context or your previous experience, you either see the same thing, it's without, there is no problem, both individual are absolutely normal, but one will say, I can see a duck here. Same sensory signal, someone will say, I can see a rabbit. So the difference between duck and rabbit depends on how your visual center is interpreting that image. Okay, it depends on the interpretation, what type of, so how your visual area of the brain will interpret the signal will depend on your mindset, see, or your previous experience. Okay, every day, for me, I used to work on the rabbit retina. So in the morning, if I go and see this picture, I say, oh, nice rabbit. But the other one who is not working on the rabbit, maybe even not familiar with the animal rabbit, they will look at it and they say, oh, nice duck here. So you see, both individuals. So what I'm saying is that sensation here is the same. Signal is coming, the signal that is coming here is the same. The receptors that are responding are rods and cones. They are exactly same. The signal, the receptors will convert that signal into an action potential into optic nerve. That is same. Optic nerve is carrying that signal as an electrical impulse. Exactly same. It will go to several relay stations, go to the optic chiasm, the lateral geniculate, and it will go all the way to the occipital lobe in the back of the brain. That is also same. So the sensation from the beginning of the visual stimulus all the way to the occipital lobe is the same. That the whole process we call a process of sensation. Now, what are we calling perception? Now, once the sensation reaches the occipital lobe, the visual area, now how my visual area is interpreting that signal and putting it in context, that is the perception. So did you get it? So is it clear to you the two different things, the sensation and perception? Okay, so that's what, those are the two, something very basic actually. I know this is just like a common sense. You guys are all graduate students. I know graduate students are all smart, and so this is not a difficult concept, but this is something you need to be very clear. We cannot confuse with this thing. So where our sensation starts, where the sensation ends, what are the relay station in between, and where ultimately the final sensation we feel when it reaches the conscious level. Sometimes you see, you may look at something, it will not create any conscious, it will not even reach your consciousness. If you see something, some junk drawing on something, it will not even create a conscious stimulus in your occipital lobe. Occipital lobe will not interpret it. It will actually let you ignore it. This is nothing. But in the morning, if you see something which is meaningful, that will reach your level of consciousness, so that you say, oh, okay, I see something, this is a nice drawing, or this is not so good drawing, this is that. So that's what the perception. Those are just some simple concept that I want to get through. Actually, I know most of you may know it already, but still, it will be a quick review for those who know those things already. Now, when we say a process, another process we call sensory transduction. So how this sensation is converted into an action potential, that is called a sensory transduction. Again, we are talking about the same things over and over again. So this is the skin. So you see the nerve ending on the skin, which means these are the receptors, right? All these three things together, what we call it? We call it a sensory unit, right? Now, say for an example, you apply a mechanical stimulus. You touch somebody's skin, okay? Now, if somebody touch my skin here, what it will do, depending on the intensity of the stimulus, the mechanical receptors actually, which are located in this particular area of my skin, so they will be stimulated, right? So they will be stimulated. So when they stimulate, if they reach the threshold of this receptor's excitation, what they will do, these receptors, they will convert that mechanical energy. Touch is a mechanical energy, right? That mechanical energy will be converted into an electrical signal in this by this receptor, and then that will be carried by this nerve. Okay. Now, so that is, and so if you look at this cartoon, you see the stimulus is applied. This is a nerve ending. Nerve ending will contain receptors, right? So this, what is the function of these receptors? This will convert this mechanical energy into an action potential in this nerve here. Okay, so how it will do it? When the stimulus is applied, what happens is that the high density stimulus gated non-selective cation channels. You see, when we apply a mechanical stimulus here, these are generally not the voltage gated channels. I don't know whether you are familiar with the voltage gated or ligand gated channels. So say like voltage gated, these are mainly, this signal is initiated because of the mechanical deformity. Because I touch it here, it's a mechanical signal. So some of the non-selective cation channel is positive ion channels, right? For an example, sodium channels. So some sodium channels will open. So a lot of sodium from the extracellular fluid will get into the nerve terminal. Okay. Normally, inside any membrane, inside any cell, this is negative, right? We call it resting membrane potential. So resting membrane potential is always in a negative, number, right? So in nerve, depending on the size of the nerve, maybe -60, -70. Now, when you apply a stimulus locally in this area, what will happen? Because of this mechanical stimulus, a lot of sodium channels will open. So that will create a positivity in that particular area. That will create a signal like this. You see, this one in the receptor, we call it graded and depolarizing local potential. This is not a propagated potential. This is just a local potential here. The membrane in this area, before the stimulus, say like it was -60. Now, because you applied the stimulus, it goes up actually in the positive direction. It goes about, say like something like a 0. Okay, or from -70 it reaches about -60, which is positive, right? From -60 it becomes -30, which is also in positive direction moving, right? So that produce a local potential. We don't call them action potential, we call them a receptor potential or generator potential. These are not propagating potential, they are localized, which means they cannot propagate, they cannot move along the nerve. It's a localized one. Now, when this localized one reaches the threshold of excitation of this nerve, this is the nerve connected to this is the nerve ending, which is serving as a receptor, and this is the nerve, right? Now, when this localized potential reaches the threshold for excitation of this nerve, then this nerve now produces an action potential. Now, this is not localized anymore. This is an action potential, and this can be propagated through the nerve. Okay, so this can be propagated through the nerve, through the dorsal ganglia. It will go to the spinal cord, to the thalamus, all the way to the sensory cortex. So that is the process of sensory transduction. Okay, so again, any stimulus, either it is mechanical or, again, say if you put something on your tongue, now you can feel the taste of it, right? You don't have to swallow. You can feel the taste because taste receptors are located in the tongue. So if you put something salty, you know that it's salty. If you put something hot, you can determine it's hot. Now, in the tongue, there are different type of receptor. If you put something hot, it will one type of receptor will respond. If you put something sweet, another type of receptor will respond. If it is salty, another type of receptor will respond. Now, when they respond, in one shot, they cannot produce an action potential. What they do, the receptors can only produce a local potential. Locally, they make a local change. Now, when this local change reaches the threshold for excitation of this nerve, at that point, it becomes an action potential in the nerve, And that action potential, what is the difference between this one and this one? This is a local graded potential. We call it non-propagating potential. This cannot propagate through the neuron. But when you have an action potential, these are propagated action potential. They can travel from one end to the other end of the nerve in milliseconds, unless they reach the end of one neuron, right? Do you remember in the first picture we showed one neuron ends in the spinal cord and another neuron begins? This signal, the action potential, will in no time will reach to the other end of the neuron, where whether it will reach to the next neuron or not, it will depend on what type of receptor you have in that synapse, right? You will hear sometime we call negative, so those are inhibitory neurotransmitters. So if you stimulate the release of inhibitory neurotransmitter, that signal will not travel any further. Like I don't know whether you are familiar with neurotransmitter like glycine. Glycine is a negative one, okay, inhibitory one. So that signal will not travel any further. But if it is something like acetylcholine, okay, the signal will quickly travel through the synaptic cleft and it will create an action potential in the next nerve, and then action potential will travel in the next nerve. So that is how the signal travels. Again, all nerve signal travel as an action potential. Whether what type of signal it is determined by where they are ending up, okay? And also, when you apply stimulus, how you interpret the signal depending on the context, on your surrounding, on your previous experience. So all those things will come into picture and it will give you a sensation. Like for an example, on this one is written here. I wanted to just give you an example. If you look at this one, at first impression, some of you out of 5, maybe 3 of you say, oh, these are two faces looking at each other, right? On the dark, it should depend on your mindset. You see, oh, they are the two faces facing each other. But if I don't say you anything, you may come and then say, okay, you may see you focus maybe on this part, and then you can see this is a nice flower vase, actually on the dark blue background, right? So do you see the difference? Even for you, you look at it and the first shot, if you show this picture to 10 people, some of them will say this is a light colored flower vase on a dark background. Some people will say these are two faces looking at each other. So that is the difference. But the sensation, there is no difference. Sensation was the same. Stimulus was the same, but interpretation of the same stimulus was very different. Okay, depending on different people will do it in a different way. Okay. So that's all I wanted to say today. I don't want to go any further than this one today. So do you have any question? Yeah, you can turn on your mic and ask anything that comes to your mind. It doesn't have to be on today's content. You can ask any question that comes to your mind.
So I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but how, like when a sensation's processed incorrectly, how does that happen?
Incorrectly means the process incorrectly means what? Can you elaborate on that?
Like I guess this isn't quite what I'm thinking of, but it's the first example that came to mind. Is when someone has had like they've lost a finger or something like that, or like have an amputation, and then they talk about like the feeling of that body part being there, but it's not.
Oh, that is not a wrong interpretation. Actually, that is a psychological state of the mind. So sometime, because say like if somebody had the leg actually for until the age of 40, and at any point at the age of 40 suddenly he, because of something, had to be amputated, so they lost his leg. Maybe while he is in conscious, he will not feel it. But maybe when he wake up in the morning, he may feel that, no, I have still, my leg is still there. That is how should I say? That is a different way of, because you are like, for an example, let me give you one example. So like, I'm wearing a glass, right? Now, if you for the first time take a glass, those who wear glass, they will know it very well. Initially, if you put the glass, you will know that something is sitting on your nose. You can feel, because why do we feel it? Because as it is here, I can feel the mechanical pressure of it that is going to my brain, and I can feel its weight, or if it is irritating me, if it is bothering me, it will do actually at the beginning. Okay, because all the time signal is going. Now, after some time, the brain will will learn how to ignore the signal coming from that pressure signal is coming from the nose. So it will, initially it was a real pressure signal, right? Pressure sensation, mechanical sensation. Eventually, after a few days, brain will learn that it will get used to it, and then it will learn to ignore this signal is not of any importance anymore. So that's why you will see sometimes people with, having their glass on on them, they look for the glasses. So I'm looking for my glasses, because somebody say, okay, your glasses on you. So that's how, so you try, it is not that brain is wrongly interpreting that signal. It is learning to ignore that signal. But real confusion of the brain, those are actually mindset. Because if you had that organ for 50 years, now while you are in full consciousness, you will not know that, you know that your leg is gone. But when you are unconscious or subconscious, or you just wake up from your sleep, you may by mistake feel that your leg is still there, but actually it's not. So those are not wrong interpretation. That is the status of your mind. One thing where brain really misjudge that is a good example. Are you familiar with the term called referred pain? You heard the term called referred pain, right? So somebody may have a heart attack, right? Heart attack means what? Your blood vessel to the heart, one of the blood vessel is blocked. So that blood vessel is not carrying blood to that particular area of the heart where it normally carries blood to, right? So now if that happens, that particular area which is normally supplied blood by that particular vessel will suffer from lack of nutrition and oxygen. So those cells will start dying. That will produce a pain signal. Okay. Now, where is pain signal coming from? Pain signal is coming from your heart. Now, as the signal entered the spinal cord, that signal in the same area, your signal from your sensory signal from your shoulder is entering the spinal cord through the same area as well. Okay. So now when the signal entered through the same segment of the spinal cord, and they eventually end up in the pain area or sensory area, now see, two things happen. The brain thinks that pain is in the shoulder, not in the heart. In fact, your shoulder is absolutely perfect. There is no problem in the shoulder. Problem is in the heart. The sensory signal, the pain signal originating in the heart. But remember, until, say, like if somebody has that heart attack at the age of 50 or 60 or 70, until the age of 70, no pain signal, not a single pain signal initiated from the heart until the age of 70. So you have no experience of having pain signal coming from the heart, but you have a lot of sensory signal coming from your shoulder. We touch, we do something, we feel pain. You see, every day, lot of signals coming from the shoulder to the brain. Now, when the signal from the shoulder and your heart, both of them enter the spinal cord at the same level, they end up in the brain sensory area in the same level, brain get confused. Initially, brain, because of its experience, it interpret as a pain coming from the shoulder. You really feel pain in the shoulder because it is your brain where you are feeling. So brain think It's a pain coming from the shoulder. So you feel it in the shoulder. But actually, shoulder has nothing to do with this pain. It is in the heart. So that pain, the pain originating from the heart is felt in the shoulder. That is called the referred pain. That is one of the confusion. It's not that brain misinterpreted or wrongly interpret. Brain get confused because brain is not familiar with receiving signal from the heart, but it is familiar with receiving signal from your shoulder all the time, sensory signal. So initially it interpret as a signal coming from those can be confusing. But about the one example that we talk about, the you losing one of your organ or putting glass, eventually you will not even know that the glass you are wearing the glass. So these are because of the either adaptation or the status of your mind.
That helps. Thank you.
Okay, so any more question regarding anything? One thing. So did you get access to the Blackboard or you got the ID from, okay. So from the content and also everything, right? Announcement, the course information. I put everything in the course information. So if you want to look at the syllabus, you can always go to the course information. You can see the syllabus. If you want to communicate with any of the faculty, all faculty information is there. Syllabus also have faculty information. I put their pictures on the Blackboard, so that you know whom I am talking about. So, and then at any point, if you want to contact any faculty, as I say, this is your right as a student. And if you think this thing, instead of doing this way, if they do it in that way, that is helpful for me, don't ever hesitate to contact the faculty you don't have to be rude with the faculty. No, you are not doing it right, do it this and that. But if you in a nice way, if you can, but don't hesitate to communicate your worries, your concern to the faculty, and that is your right. And as I said, for us it's not a problem, but for those who are graduate students, you need to maintain a very good working relation. I saw, you will see as well, the lot of fightings take place between your supervisor and yourself. Generally, when a time to publish a paper comes or the time of your graduation, the supervisors tend to go slow. They say, no, only it's 3 years. You will have 1 more year to go. You say, no, I am already 3 more years. I have spent 3 years. I want to graduate next year. You see, those things will come. Some of you may experience, some of you may not, but always maintain a very good working relation with your advisor. So, it's not taking a course that you are taking a course in the spring. That's it. But those advisors will be with you forever, actually. Even after your PhD, you always in contact with them, communicate with them. So that is something. But at any point, if you think any of your right is violated, or you have every right to raise that concern, whether it is regarding anything. So that, don't hesitate about that. That is my advice, actually. But as I said, a very good working relation with your PhD advisor is absolutely important for your successful graduation. So 2 of you are from Dr. Allen's lab, right? Anthony Allen?
Yes.
Okay, so one is Angela's lab. And okay, so and the other 2, okay, one I can remember which lab. You said you work with the medical something. Let me stop sharing so that I can see all of you. How do I stop sharing? Okay, good. Okay, so if you don't have any question, I think we can stop here. But if you have any question, you can ask me now. Or if anything come to your mind, maybe now you are thinking of your work, of your project, something, so that you couldn't very carefully listen to the talk. So what you can do, you can go, those PowerPoints are there. And as I said, anytime, if anything come to your mind, don't hesitate to let us know. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.